I'm Nan McKay, and I would like to introduce you today to Kitty Chaney-Reed. Kitty is IBM's Vice President of Enterprise Operations, and she's also Senior State Executive for IBM in Georgia. She's been Vice President of several divisions of IBM and was Vice President of NCR Corporation. Kitty serves as the executive sponsor for the Atlanta Global Women in IBM initiative and also serves on IBM's Black Executive Council. In recognition of her efforts, in 2015, she was awarded the Most Powerful and Influential Woman Award from the Georgia Diversity Council. Kitty was named Woman of the Year for enterprise businesses with over 2,500 employees by the Atlanta based organization Women in Technology because she also believes in paying it forward. She mentors and coaches girls and women who aspire to lead in the areas of business and technology. And she also served on the Women in Technology Board of Directors as the treasurer for 3 years. And she now serves on their advisory board. So, welcome, Kitty Chaney-Reed.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me.
Kitty, you've held the position of vice president for several companies. Where did you start and how did you arrive at this spot in your career?
So that's a great question. I have been very fortunate in my career and fortunate in many ways, but fortunate from the perspective of having the opportunity to try out a lot of things over the last 30 years. I graduated from Clark Atlanta University, and boy, when I graduated, I never thought that I'd be leading teams, but almost immediately I had the opportunity to lead people. And I tell people all the time, I had no business doing that at 21 years old. But Macy's department stores gave me the opportunity through their executive training program to really have a learning experience by leading teams. And so that was amazing. Having a start in fashion was amazing. And then I did lots of things along the way, Nan, but the thing that was most appealing to me was having the opportunity to go work for a technology startup. And going to work for a technology startup was not something I envisioned myself ever doing, right? Not at all. I had a friend who I had worked with, and he saw an opportunity for me to join that team and lead their training and operations practice, where I would go out and teach people how to use their technology and how to apply it to their retail operations. And I remember going into that building. They had about 40 employees, and music was blaring so loud from like every corner of the building. And I thought, what on earth are these people doing? They can't be working. But that was my foray into technology, and it's one of the best things I could have ever done. That company blossomed into a much larger company and eventually went public. It was called, when it went public, it was called Radiant Systems, and it was later acquired by the NCR Corporation, which is where I worked before I came to IBM. So I've skipped over a lot of the salient points and really tried to get to the high points and share with you kind of the highlights of how I jumped into technology as a career.
I'm always fascinated by a decision that you make that leads you in one direction or another. And the other thing I'm always interested in, because I think most of us have this, is someone who opened a door or pushed us in a direction that we really didn't think we were going to go or didn't expect. And that's what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah, for sure. This friend of mine was certainly let's call it an influencer in my career. And somebody who I trusted, somebody who I could call a friend. And if he was making a decision to go and work for this company after being in corporate America for so long, then I thought it was a leap I could take. I wasn't easily convinced, but he didn't give up. So I appreciated that more than I tell you what, I tell him all the time how grateful I am for him.
It makes a difference. Tell me about being appointed as the senior state executive for IBM in Georgia.
So this is another surprise to me. So when I joined IBM, one of the most important things to me was building relationships with people who knew their way around IBM. So I had an opportunity to develop a relationship with the former state site executive, Dave Cole, who led a part of our public sector and who had this role before me, as I said. And, you know, he kept pulling me in. He kept saying, hey, Kitty, can you run our ECCC program, which is our charitable giving program? Hey, Kitty, can you come and sit in on this meeting with me? Hey, Kitty. So, you know, he drew me in early. And, you know, he knew that I had a passion for people and for engagement and for social causes. And so he leveraged me to help move things forward. And he made a decision to take a new role within IBM, a big promotion. And as a result of that, he couldn't continue in the current role. So he came to me again and said, hey, Kitty. And I said, sure, Dave, I'll do this. No problem at all. But it really wasn't as straightforward as that. I had to compete for the role. There were other qualified candidates, and I was the person who was selected. So I'm thrilled to be in this role. It's a great opportunity to represent IBM.
What are some of the things that you do in that role?
Boy, what are the things I don't do in this role? The interesting thing and very relevant at the time is crisis management. So through the whole COVID event, I have been very involved in planning our response, getting our people home, thinking about bringing our people back to work. And really helping to make decisions around that. So that's one thing. And then probably even more important than that is keeping our people engaged and making certain that we are making our mark in Georgia. A couple of things that I would consider noteworthy are the following. So this past spring, we had an opportunity to really advocate for the passing of the hate legislation bill in Georgia. And I represented IBM in that way and signed as a part of a coalition of 30 or so other companies who appealed to the legislature to pass the bill. And so was delighted when the bill passed. And certainly for us, it was a very proud moment. I'm a native Georgian. And so to see something as monumental as that happen in Georgia and know that I was a part of it was quite amazing. And I would say the second thing is, or the third thing that I want to highlight for you is one of the most important things for me is making sure that people enjoy coming to work every day and that they're proud to show up at work every day as IBMers. So we've done a number of things to keep our employees engaged. Just this past week, we had hot chocolate with Kitty. So we played trivia, Christmas trivia, holiday trivia, and and we had our beverages. We talked about holiday traditions. Every quarter I meet with the thousands of employees in Georgia, and we get caught up on how the company's doing, what's happening in the company, and what things we're doing in the community. So that's a snippet of what I do. But I would say that's just a snippet. Anything that you can imagine needs doing in the state of Georgia, we're involved in it.
So I assume a lot of what you're doing and what you mentioned is over Zoom now?
Well, we have a tool called WebEx. So we don't use Zoom. We used to. When I first started, Zoom was the headline tool for collaboration and connection. And now it is WebEx. WebEx is a little bit more robust, and it's just the tool that we chose, but it is a Zoom-like tool. So we see each other. We share from time to time the restrictions around and the fatigue around, being on camera all the time. So, sometimes we have to apologize and say, today I'm not camera ready. So, you get to see my picture instead of my lovely face live. But for sure, that has become a critical part of how we connect.
You were also vice president of Quote to Cash, and that's for IBM, of course. And I'm thinking, what does that mean? Does that encompass the processes from start to finish, or what's it mean?
It's a huge, huge responsibility is what it is. So as the vice president of Quote to Cash, you are responsible for everything from the initiation of the contract. So after we sell a contract to a customer, we then have to start to engage with that customer and execute on the terms of the contract. So all aspects of that, ordering, quoting, collections, disputes, anything in that end-to-end process belonged to me and my team. And in that role, I had, let's call it 3,000 employees that were in 5 or 6 countries that supported our largest geography, which was North America, Latin America, and Canada. So all of those spots called the Americas. We took care of that for all of our sellers and our end customers. So a tremendous responsibility, but what a fun job. Every day there's a problem to solve. Every day there's something different to tackle. You get the aspects of technology, you get the aspects of the people, you get the aspects of our clients. And more importantly than that, you get the opportunity to really look at ways to reinvent the way we work and ways to automate and to use intelligent automation and robotic process automation. So it was a lot of fun to transform that business and lead that team.
The robotic transformation. What you said?
Robotic process automation.
Okay. So what are you automating by robotics?
Processes. So there are a lot of, think about it this way, Nan. So there's some things in your house, some tasks that you really enjoy doing, right? But there are other things that you despise because they're redundant, and in your mind, anybody could do them, like vacuuming, for example, right? You probably, I don't know, I find it therapeutic, but some people might not enjoy vacuuming. So some clever person invented an automated way to vacuum. They programmed a machine to actually figure out how to vacuum the floor for you without bumping into things, right? So they did a great job of figuring that out. So we do the exact same with redundant processes within our processes, within redundant tasks within our processes. We figure out ways to use technology to automate those so that we're freed up to do the things that are high value. And so with that comes efficiency and ways for us to invest in higher value tasks.
Makes a lot of sense.
Cool. I'm glad I was able to explain that.
Yeah, in an easy way, because we can all relate to the little vacuum, round vacuum that goes all over our floors.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
What is the Atlanta Global Women Initiative? What is that?
So we have IBM has a Global Women's Initiative. So we're committed certainly to the advancement and the progression of women within our corporation. And we also want to celebrate the accomplishments of women within IBM. So each of our major locations will have an executive sponsor that is really responsible for shepherding a group of women who've committed themselves to really focusing on women and their empowerment, their enablement, and celebrating them, quite frankly. So I am the executive sponsor to that group in Atlanta, and we every year have multiple events, but our crowning event is our Global Women's event that happens once a year, usually in March. And we choose a color for the event. We choose guest speakers. Usually we involve internal and external speakers. We have panels. We have fun activities like cultural activities, celebrating different cultures and different women are also celebrated who've had great accomplishments throughout the year. So it's really an opportunity to celebrate and also an opportunity for us to invest in women throughout the course of the year.
What then is the Black Executive Council?
Well, similar. So all of these things are what we call versions of affinity groups or business resource groups. So the Black Executive Council is a group of executives who are very focused on moving forward our Black employees in terms of representation, in terms of what I would consider good tech. So really making sure that we're using tech for good when it comes to the Black community and underrepresented minorities. Also, what we call economic empowerment. The way you move any group of people or race of people forward is through education, I believe, and we believe. So really investing in the Black community and underrepresented communities in that way. And then finally, political reform and justice. So legislation like the hate crimes bill, those kinds of things. So the four things that I just talked about, including representation, are a part of an umbrella initiative called Embrace. So it's the word embrace with race in parentheses. And we really have, over the course of the last year, been very, very focused on standing up those four pillars and progressing IBM in terms of tangible outcomes in each of those areas. So it's been amazing work, especially in the wake of the social issues that we've had to contend with since the death of George Floyd. So I sit proudly as one of the co-chairs of the BEC and spend, as much time as I can dedicate to those initiatives.
Are you, through that council or through anything else you're doing, is IBM involved in getting equipment or internet or equality in some way with our African American communities in neighborhoods where kids can't go to school right now, but really need to have that education. Are you having any involvement in that area?
Absolutely. So IBM has been instrumental, especially in Georgia and in key areas across the world of enabling such things. So when we first started with the remote work, one of the things we were able to do is stand up a platform with schools in Georgia to help them actually go virtual. So our cloud teams worked very diligently, even directly from one of the locations in Atlanta, to set up that technology and capability. So absolutely. And then even going beyond that, one of the things that IBM has done that I'm extremely proud of is we have set aside $100 million for historically Black colleges and universities to help them move forward the capabilities around quantum computing, cybersecurity training. So all of the kind of cutting edge technology pieces over the last several months, we've really made a commitment. We've doubled down on investing in Black communities in this way. And I'm proud to say within Georgia in particular, my alma mater, which is Clark Atlanta University, we just finished up training the faculty there on I'm not sure if it was cybersecurity or if it was another topic, but it was one of our key topics. And I believe it was cybersecurity. But I'm so excited about the fact that we're investing in training the faculty at these universities. And not only that, giving them the technology, right, under this grant, giving them the technology to really enable themselves, right? And then students can download for free assets that will help them to learn and practice these skills. So these are the kinds of things we're doing in addition to offering internships through a program called PTech, where we're actually not requiring people to have these days 4-year degrees, right? We want them to be able to secure meaningful work without necessarily investing in 4-year degrees. So PTech is a program that does that. And by the end of 2021, we want to have offered internships to 1,000 PTech interns. So we're excited about that. We are really excited about that.
I'm really glad to hear that you're doing what you're doing with historically Black colleges, because we have discussed that a lot with many of our guests. And one of the discussions that you may want to listen to is between Virginia Harris, who is the president of the Coalition of 100 Black Women.
Yes.
And Dee Dee Strum, who is my friend since the 70s and the co-host of this show. They really had a great discussion at length on that topic. And I hope that you at IBM and a lot of our listeners will look at both of these opportunities to understand what the historically Black colleges represent, who they are, why they're important, etc.
Yeah, I think what's exciting to me, I remember this distinctly. I remember when IBM reached out to recruit me, I said to the recruiter, I had no idea you guys were interested in people like me, people who grew up in historically Black colleges and universities and not Ivy League colleges. It was just kind of my perspective about the Big Blue. It was a huge multi-billion-dollar company. And I just didn't think that they would proactively be looking at, people like me for roles like the one I was competing for, which was the vice president of quote to cash. And I remember thinking to myself, this is so refreshing. And so I started looking at the company and the history of diversity and inclusion that goes back to the mid 1900s. And I was like, wow, this is amazing to me. What a great company, and what a great place for me to really launch, another phase of my career. I certainly wasn't looking for an opportunity when they called. And if you had asked me, I would have said, no, I would never be sitting in this chair. So I'm really excited about the commitment IBM has made to HBCUs and to the Black community.
It's great. Now at IBM, you've established yourself as a forward thinker who challenges herself and others to redefine what best looks like. So I got to ask, what are you best at your job?
It's always hard to talk about what you're best at. But one of the things I've learned that sets me apart, and this is through feedback, this is through, dialogue with other people, is just my willingness to connect with people and my willingness to be vulnerable. And I think that applies in like every situation. When you're trying to solve tough problems, and ego is not something you can bring to the table. You have to be humble. You have to be a listener. You have to be a bridge builder. And I think over the years, I have perfected that skill. You can always grow, right? And every challenge gives you an opportunity to grow more. But I think one of the things that I am known for is pushing the envelope, but pushing the envelope in a constructive way. I think people view me as a builder. And that's important in corporate America. I find that is a skill that you don't see very often. You see a lot of strong people, a lot of smart people, but collaboration and the ability to build things and build relationships is a skill that is learned over a number of years and honed over a number of years.
One of the things that I think people sometimes struggle with is being underestimated. Have you ever been underestimated? I kind of doubt it, but have you in your career? And if you have, what'd you do about it?
So I would tell you that if you've been in corporate America as a woman for any period of time, you've certainly been underestimated at some point in your career. So yes, I have been underestimated. And I will tell you that it's not something that you do something about. It's something that you respond to, and you respond to with excellence. And for me, every time I've been underestimated, I've overperformed. And that for me is absolutely the way to respond to those who think maybe that you can't compete with the strongest of the bunch, or that you don't have anything to add, or you didn't earn your seat at the table. You just have to demonstrate to people through outcomes and results that you earned your spot and you're going to keep earning it.
So would you describe some of those as your boldest moments, or do you have another one?
I think the boldest moment in my career of recent times has been I have to be careful about this, but I want to be transparent as well. But I think, when I was a part of the acquisition of radiant systems with NCR, one of the things that that struck me was NCR's decision to offshore a lot of their work. And so when they came to us, you know, it was a bunch of people in suits, a bunch of men and a few women in suits in the cafeteria. I remember this really clearly. And they talked to us about how they were likely to outsource most of our internal functions. And, you know, there was nothing we could do about it. We'd be on new systems and tools in 6 months. And I smiled and I thought, okay, good luck with that. And so I was a part of the integration team. And there was a point after about 3 or 4 months that I was really clear that the strategy we had talked about wasn't going to work. And so I had to figure out what to do about that. I really did. I had to figure out, are you going to say something? Are you going to do something? What are you going to do about that? And so I asked for time with the CEO, and I explained to him and to the rest of the decision makers in the room why I thought the path that we were going down was not the right path, and what I thought we should do instead. And to my surprise, they were very open to my suggestions, and they were very eager to hear more. So it changed the course of our integration planning. And I was asked to lead one of our verticals, the quote to cash piece, of course, and the other pieces of shared services, because I was not afraid to speak up. There were other people who were there and maybe knew differently or felt differently, but didn't speak up. I'm not going to say they didn't have the courage, because I have no idea whether they did or didn't, or whether they thought it was important. But for me, it was really important. And it was important for me to speak up. So I would say that was a career defining moment for me. It paved the way for me to secure a vice president role within NCR. And it also paved the way for me to gain the respect and confidence of our most senior leaders.
Really interesting. The things that I find particularly interesting in what you said is, number one, you did speak up, because a lot of people just grumble to their coworkers or say, that's never going to work, etc. You spoke up. Two is you spoke up to the right people. You sought out, who are the decision makers? Who should I approach? I think that's really important. The third thing that I really like about what you said is that you didn't just gripe, or you didn't just present the problem. You presented a solution to the problem. And that's what I think people sometimes forget, that if there's a better way of doing it, it's possible that somebody will be open to maybe just changing it a little bit, but maybe that change was enough to make that difference that you're talking about.
Absolutely. And I think, I tell all of the folks I mentor and coach that you have to be a problem solver. A good friend of mine and a colleague always says you can be a problem explainer or you can be a problem solver. And I told him I've adopted his mantra. Certainly, I've made the same. I've given the same sentiment to my teams, but I never use those words. So I really like the words, and so it's a great piece of advice. Be a problem solver, not a problem explainer.
Very good point. What drives you in your personal like leadership journey?
So I tell people this all the time too, Nan. I show up to work not because of the work itself, but because of the impact of the work. What's more important to me than a title or the size of an office or influence is the impact I can make on people's lives. And so, working in such a great company with so many opportunities gives me a platform. And so, I try and use that platform to really better lives and to really give people the opportunity to achieve their utmost potential. I feel like the most important job I have is to source and develop talent because that's how you get things done. And again, it changes lives. And when I look back on what I've accomplished at some point in my life, I want it to be that I've made a positive impact on as many lives as I can.
I am really curious about something.
Okay.
How did your early life, like growing up as a child, you ended up at a historically Black college. How did your early life affect really who you are today?
So that's an easy one. So I had an amazing mother. That was probably the most impactful part of my life. But I grew up in a small town, which I think helped shape me as well. A small town where everybody knows your name, everybody knows your parents, everybody knows your grandparents. So the level of accountability is high. And whatever reputation you develop is going to stick with you forever. So, I wanted to have a great reputation, and my mom was not one to play games. She had a high bar. She still has a high bar, and so you want to meet expectations. Nobody ever wants to disappoint their parents, but my mom and my dad were great friends, but didn't stay married past my 11th year of life. And so my mom was a single parent. I have one sibling, which is a brother, and he's a younger brother. So when she wasn't home and when she was off working, I had to be the responsible person. So I learned very early to be responsible. I was also an avid reader, which in turn created for me a great imagination. So I had already envisioned the life I wanted to lead and exactly what it was supposed to look like. And I thought the only way I can achieve this is by getting outside of this small town and seeing some part of the world and really getting an education. So I was very serious about my studies. And there were lots and lots of people, teachers, educators, that helped me formulate what my future would look like. So I got a scholarship to Clark Atlanta. I was I did all kinds of things. I was a drama student. I thought I was going to be the Monica Kaufman of Atlanta when she retired. I thought I was going to do a whole bunch of things. But the point is, I dreamed. And so in dreaming and having an early vision for myself, I was able to really do things that maybe other people thought anybody in my position wouldn't be able to do. And I was really committed to, doing awesome things and getting outside of, what I grew up in and, having an awesome life and creating an awesome life for my family. And through the grace of God, that happened. And so I'll just tell you that having great parents, having great mentors and coaches and educators who believed in me made a big difference in my life. Really, it did.
I have a feeling that grit and determination may have played a little part in this too.
I would say so. I am, we say all the time that if you're going to fail, you need to fail fast, right? It's an agile principle, which is the principle that we've built our business on in so many ways. And I think about that. I think about, how many times I took a different turn, how many times I learned a lesson, brushed myself off, and got up and moved on. But I will tell you that the other thing that I find very interesting, and I talk to my boys about this, I have 3 boys, and I talk to them about this all the time. You have to decide who you want to be, and you have to be committed to it. And it's not for wimps. You have to get up every morning and do hard things. When I was going to college, the first year, I couldn't afford to live on campus. So I hopped a bus and then a train and then another bus to get to class every single day. And I did that and then after going to school all day, going to class all day, I hopped the same bus, the same train, the same bus to get to the other side of town, to get to work so that I could save money, so that I could live on campus the next year, right? I knew what I wanted and I knew what I had to do to get it. And so I did it. And, our kids, I tell my kids all the time, you guys are soft. We've given you all these things. I had to work really hard for these things. But I do think you're right. Grit and determination are factors in anybody's success.
You have a passion, I think, for diversity and inclusion. Would you call yourself an activist?
That's really interesting that you would use that word. I think that word is reserved for the greats, the Nelson Mandelas, the MLKs, the Mahatma Gandhis. I would consider myself one person trying to make a difference. And again, activists are heroes, in my opinion. And so it's a high bar for me. So no, I wouldn't call myself an activist, just one person trying to make a difference.
You've talked about the passion that you have. How are you employing that passion in your personal life?
So thanks for asking that question. I have 3 boys and a great husband, and we as a family have a commitment to giving back. All of us in some way have a way that we give back. And traditionally, I've instilled in myself and my boys the importance of giving back to our community. By the way, I live in the same small town that I grew up in. So that sense of accountability is there for me every single day. So I give certainly through church and have been very active in church. The other way that I give back is through the Boys and Girls Club in our town. My oldest son chose to get very involved in the Boys and Girls Club when he was in the 10th grade, which meant that I had to get very involved. And he was Youth of the Year and a whole bunch of things. He kept working at the Boys and Girls Club so long that I thought that was going to be his employer when he finished college. But of course, he had, a change and he didn't. But we still give to the Boys and Girls Club. I make a sizable donation there every year. And the other thing I would say is I find it very fulfilling to give back through coaching and mentoring in my personal life. So as many professional mentors as I have life mentors, right? Or life mentors and mentees, people I give to. And I think it's so important that people like us give back in that way. Women in Technology is a group that I've been affiliated, as you highlighted earlier, I've been affiliated with for several years. And they believe in from the boardroom, from the classroom to the boardroom. And that's all outside of work for me. You can't squeeze everything into a 40-hour work week. So that's amazing work. And the last thing I would say is just in terms of personal passions, my family is and my home are most important to me when I'm not taking care of other people. They always come first for sure, and it's just really important to me to create a great space for them where they can always come back to, and where they can call home. And so I spend a lot of time on traditional things, like making Sunday dinner, and making certain that Thanksgiving and Christmas are amazing. And again, making home a place they always want to come back to.
Well, Kitty, I have so enjoyed our conversation. We've covered a lot of topics. You've given
Absolutely.
a lot of really great advice to people. I think people, in so many ways, are struggling. When we've got COVID, we've got the economy, we've got race relations, we've got climate change. That's a lot. And I really appreciate the inspiration I think that you have been to a lot of people, both internally, I can tell through your jobs that you've had, externally, how you have volunteered and how you've cemented those that integrity even in your own family. So I really appreciate everything you've shared with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Take good care.